Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. Time for another inbox review. And today we have another monster kit from Trumpeter in 1/32 scale. We did a variant of this kit last week, and this week we will be doing the Trumpeter 1/32 MIG-29C Fulcrum right here. So going by last week's box with the MiG-21A, that kit seemed pretty nice. A couple areas that really needed some touch-ups with some detail, like the exhaust and the cockpit, and also had some mold issues with the upper fuselage. But I'm pretty sure that this kit is going to be pretty much the same deal with this one, just a couple other different areas. But I'm going to get the box set up and the camera set up, and then we will start going through everything in just 1 second. So I'll be right back. Alright, and I'm back to the bench. Got the camera turned around. Looking at the top box art, we got the typical Trumpeter box art. Absolutely lovely with the painted on look. So you can cut this out and post it on your wall, and you'll have a nice piece of wall art right there. We do have a total length of 536.2 millimeters. A wingspan of 356.5 millimeters, and a total part counts of more than 400 or 570 pieces in this kit. So it's going to be one of those in-between parts count kits where it's not a lot but not too little. So it should be fairly decently detailed on this. So moving off to the side, we have a one paint scheme right here. Let me get it into frame right here. Nice one with the Russian Air Force PVO Division 28th GVIAP 2nd Squadron MiG-29C Blue NK, and I cannot say that word right there. So, and then moving on, it looks like we have some metal landing gear parts, and then also 2 decal sheets and a couple photo etch frets along with this kit. Then we also have a nice little history about the MiG-29C right here as well. We flip it over to the other side. We have the other scheme of the Ukrainian Air Force Gustama Airport MiG-29C 44 white right there. So again, very nice one. I might be doing this one, I'm not sure. We'll have to see. But then we have all of our ordnance that we get with this kit. Typical of Trumpeter, we're probably going to have a lot of ordnance. And then that is it for the box. So let me get everything cut open. This is the first time I've seen this kit in particular, so I literally have the tape still on the box right here. Get that all cut off. We open up the box, maybe. Nice and tight box, which is never a bad thing. Alright, so we open up the box and we're greeted by the box falling over. Alright, so we're greeted by nice packing with the kit. We got a nice little Master Tools sheet right here. And then we have our fuselage, and then a box right here that has all of our parts. Some of our parts right here. Then we have some other parts right in this little container right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything set up, and then we can start going through the decals, the instructions, and then we'll go through all the parts. So give me 1 second to get everything set up. Alright, so we get the box opened up, and we have our fuselage, and then we have on the side we have a few other sprues, and then some photo etch and a weight right here. So I'm going to get everything set up to the side, and then we can start going through everything in this kit. So give me 1 second. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, we have item number 03224 and the standard Trumpeter landscape format for booklet. We have the read before assembly, decal application, and also the legend of symbols that we will be seeing throughout this build. Then opening up, we have our sprue callouts right in here. As you can see, all the sprues going on. We also have a weight for the nose. And then we have a couple photo etch frets. We have some metal landing gear, and we also have some rubber tires as well. The numbers on the sprues are kinda legible, but not really. You're definitely going to need some readers or a magnifying glass to see those. Alright, so starting off with the kit, starting off with our ejection seat, getting all that assembled, and then we have our cockpit tub, adding in a couple pieces to the top of the cockpit tub, and then adding a couple more pieces to it for detail. After that, we're getting our ejection seat in, a couple more pieces to the cockpit tub, and then the sidewalls, and then our instrument panel, and another box for the top spine. After that, we are getting the cockpit assembly put into the upper fuselage, and then we're flipping it around. We're putting in our instrument combing with our HUD and a few other pieces right in there. Alright, and after that's all done, we have our front front glare shield right here, along with the hosing and a couple photo etch parts and a box that goes on our instrument combing right there. So that's going to be really nice and detailed. After that's done, we have our main canopy, adding in a piece to go on the tail end of it, and then we have our glass piece going on, so we have a frame and the glass part on that. We do also have the option of having this in the opened or closed position. We also have some rear view mirrors and a couple other detail pieces to go onto the inside of the canopy. We also have the seal that goes along the front of the canopy and the bottom of the canopy as well. Then our gun fairing right here, and then a couple of probes to go on there as well. After that's all done, working on the upper fuselage, we have a pitot tube right here. We have a sensor to go up here on the nose, and then we have our upper intakes as well. So with Russian aircraft, they're meant to be rugged, they're built to be rugged. They go on some unprepared airfields, so they have the intakes on the underside and on the top side as well, so they help prevent having FOD damage to their engines. Alright, then after that, we are starting with our nose landing gear, getting our landing gear all done. We have a metal core to insert to this plastic piece right here, which is really going to help with the strength of the nose, especially with adding that weight to the front of the kit. And then we're getting all the detail pieces in right along here, and then we are putting in our landing gear. So it does not look like we'll be able to attach the nose landing gear at the end of the build, but hopefully we can figure out how to kind of finesse it in at the very end instead of attaching it at this point. Alright, then after that, we're getting our nose gear assembly all put into the lower fuselage. And then after that, we have some more detail parts to put with our nose landing gear, our nose landing gear doors, and then we're starting off with our main landing gear right there, and then a few lumps and bumps and such to go onto the kit. We also do have a note for the option G12 or PTB 1500 right there. So I'm not sure on what that means, but we'll have to check. After that, we are working on our main undercarriage bay, getting that done. We have a few bottles to put in, and then yeah, some wall detail to go in there as well. Then we're working on our intakes. We have our FOD gates right here to add. We do need to paint up to a certain area gray, it looks like. So we have our right and left intakes, and then after that we are getting the intakes attached to the lower fuselage. Then we have a few other pieces to add in right in here as well for our upper intakes on the area that they're going to see. And then a couple pieces for our engine bay as well. Then after that, we're moving on to our engines. We do have full-length engines with a few detail parts going on there, and then just building all the engines up right and left on that, and then we are attaching our engines to the lower fuselage. Then we have our engine covers going on. You can have these, you could pull the engine out and have this off and see some of the detail that's inside of there as well. We also have some scoops that are going onto these engine covers. After that's done, we're working on our main landing gear doors. Getting that done, we do have a couple of landing gear lights to go in there as well. Then after that, we are getting our upper and lower fuselage halves together. The way that these sandwich together, you should not have an issue with any seam lines, hopefully, in this kit. So moving on, we're working on our aft landing gear with the metal cores right here. Gonna help strengthen that up and had a little bit of detail to these pieces as well. Then we have our rubber tire with our wheel hubs going in as well. After that, we have our speed brake going on for the lower half. It does not look like we have the option of having the speed brake open or closed for this build. And then after that, we have some wing fences to go on, and then our upper speed brake. And then after that, we're working on our vertical stabilizers, getting all those done and attached. Right there, we have a couple of probes to add on to those as well. Then we're also adding in our horizontal stabilizers. After that's all done, we are adding in our slaps, flaps, and ailerons, getting those all added, and we have our AOA probes as well going on both sides of that. Another nice detail to this kit is it does include a tow bar for this, so definitely going to want to build this up. If I don't use it for this one, I might use it for another Russian aircraft down the road, but we'll have to see. Then another nice detail about this kit is it does include a boarding ladder as well, and you're also attaching a antenna for the last step of this build. Then moving on, we have a bunch of ordnance. This is our air to ground ordnance, and then also a fuel tank right here, which is the PTB 1500. So that's what that one step means. And then, or meant. Then we have our pylons, and then our air-to-air missiles going on, and then our rockets as well on that. And then to close it all up, we have our standard ordnance location call out right here. So if you follow this, you'll have an accurate loadout on this kit. Alright, up next we have our color callouts. Again, the Russian Air Force 5th PVO Division 28th GV IAP 2nd Squadron MiG-29C Isodeli 913 33 blue NKH. Again, I'm not going to try to say that word, but again, some nice color schemes on here with the gray and green on that. I really do like that one. We also have our decal placement for the inside of the cockpit and our instrument panel, and our color callouts are used Vallejo, Model Master, Tamiya, and Humbrol on these. So we flip it over to the other side, and then we have the Ukrainian Air Force Gustomel Airport MiG-29C 44 white, and then we have the serial number and field number as well, which is a question mark field for the field number. So again, nice color scheme with the gray and green. Only difference between this one and the other one is the national markings of the Ukrainian Air Force instead of the Russian Air Force on this. So again, nicely done on those color callouts. Then up next we have our ordnance decal placement and color callout on this. Again, nicely detailed. Shouldn't have an issue with locating any of the places for the decals. Alright, up next we have our main decal sheet with our national emblems on here, and then a few of the stencils going on. Decals do look nice. They're like a semi-gloss finish on here. The carrier film is kind of large in some of the areas, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue to take care of on that. Alright, and then our ordnance decal sheet, again the same thing as the other decal sheet, very nice. A little bit heavy on the carrier film, but it shouldn't be much of an issue. Like you have these for one of the missiles right here, and it's one giant decal with one sheet of carrier film, which is definitely going to be kind of a nightmare to take care of. I might cut these out separately and put them on like that, just to combat that situation, because if you have that much carrier film, it likes to go crooked when you're trying to roll the water out. The decals for the instrument panels do look okay as well. A little bit generic. Definitely going to look into getting the Quinta Studios 3D printed decals or a resin cockpit for this. Alright, so starting off with our upper fuselage right here, get zoomed in for you. We have some nice panel line and rivet detail all the way through on the upper side right here, and then on your exhaust area again, some very nice detail on that area. And again on our wings we do have a couple of like ejector pin nut picks right here. As you can see, gonna need to sand those down, but those shouldn't be much of an issue. And then we have this nice little sprue gate protecting this static discharge right here. Now moving on to the nose, we do have the same issue that we've had with other Russian aircraft, with it just being a different mold. You have this odd mold seam right here to take care of, and it's also a different type of plastic, it feels like, as you can see in the camera right there. So we have this one going on right here, which just is in the middle of the fuselage. And then on this side, it kind of lines up. Actually, it's a little bit odd back here, and then it's just right in the middle. So I don't know what is going on with that. Definitely different molds for different noses of the Russian aircraft. But again, the rest of the detail on here is actually fairly nice. Then on the underside, we have some detail right here for our engine bay. So if you would like to pull the engine out and show like the engine out and then this area empty, definitely is possible, and adding up a little bit of plumbing and stuff to it will definitely liven that up. Then for the underside, same thing with the panel line and rivet detail on here once I get the camera to focus. And we also do have those same ejector pin marks right there that we'll need to cut off and sand down to take care of. But all the other detail on here looks really, really nice. You have some vent detail right here, then a little bit of detail for our main landing gear bay on that. But everything else on here does look fairly nice, especially for an underside that you're really not going to be able to see. Alright, so starting off with the nose weight, again it's nice and pre-shaped for the nose cone, so it's not going to be any issues with any of that. And it is a fairly decent chunk of weight, so definitely going to want to add that to our model. And for the packing of it, it is in some nice bubble wrap right here, and it's also in a separate compartment of the model box, so you won't have to worry about this getting knocked around. Alright, then we have a clear sprue for our seeker heads and some of our nav lights and our HUD glass. One thing is, I wish they would have done a clear film for this HUD glass, because you have that photo etch, as we'll see here in a second, for the HUD framing, but then this clear piece, which is a little bit too thick. So I think the clear film would have been a better option for that. Then we also have, like I said, two photo etch frets. You have your HUD framing right here, some rear view mirrors, and then also some grills that go on to by the upper intakes. And then on this side you have your framing, the frame seal right here, and then also a couple pieces for the instrument combing right here, and then also your rear view mirrors. Then we have another two sprues of clear parts for our seeker heads on our Ordinance right here. As you can see, nothing special for those. Alright, up next we have our fuel tank. Our fuel tank is actually very nicely detailed. We have some cabling and hosing that goes along here, along with some raised detail and recessed detail on there, going top and bottom. And then on the nose of it, again, we have some nice raised and recessed detail on it, along with this very fine tube right here, and then some other detail on that as well. So that should be very nicely done when it's all painted and weathered. Up next we have our first clear canopy piece. Again, nice and clear. You do have like two little, it looks like seam lines down the sides right here, but after some research, those are actually supposed to be there. It looks like a little bit of scuffing, but just a little bit of a polish and buff, and it should be perfectly fine. Alright, then moving on to our main canopy piece. Again, same thing with the front canopy. A little bit of scuffing, but a little bit of polish and a buff. Definitely take all of that out. There is no seam line going down the middle of here, so that's a nice bonus point to them. And we're going to look very nice when it's all done. We also have some very small clear parts right here and here that we're going to be adding to the kit as well. Up next, we have our rubber tires. A little bit of tread, no sidewall detail. My honest opinion, they're trash. I'm going to get resin ones instead. I wish Trumpeter would get away from using vinyl tires because I hate them. Alright, up next we have our ejection seat. Again, detail on here is okay. We have the molded in seat belts that are just flat and plain on there. And the seat cushion detail is just a couple lines going down there. So definitely gonna either a resin ejection seat or a 3D printed decal sheet or something like that to kind of liven that up. But everything else on here, just it looks kind of generic. It doesn't look like too much. It's very underwhelming for the detail on this cockpit area. Okay, up next we have a double sprue with our wheel hubs. As you can see, not much detail to them, but I'm pretty sure that there's actually not much detail to the actual real wheel hubs. Try saying that 5 times fast. But again, some decent detail on all of these pieces. I'm not seeing anything wrong with anything so far. Alright, up next we have our gratings for our upper intakes right here. We have the option of having it in the closed position, which we have some nice panel lines and stuff to go on there. And then we have the open position as well, which is a very nice option, and they look absolutely amazing in the open position. Then we have a few of the detail pieces that are going to go on the top spine right here. Some nice like circuit breaker switches right here. And then our instrument combing. Our instrument combing has a fairly decent amount of detail, as you can see right here, and it's going to be a good starting point because you're going to have the HUD and a few other boxes that go on here as well to really liven that up. Then we have the hosing that goes around this instrument combing right in front of the right by the canopy. I think this is a defrosting thing for the front canopy. Again, very nice. This pitot tube for the nose looks pretty nice, but with that being said, I think I am going to go with the try to find a metal one just to make sure it's strong and doesn't get broken off. All the other detail does look fairly nice. Alright, up next we have our metal landing gear. Not much to it. These are going to be core inserts, so you're really not going to be able to see much of this. I'm not seeing any ejector pin marks on any area that you would be able to see either, so that is nice that the ejector pin marks were put on non-visible areas. Okay, up next we have our canopy framing. Again, not much to it. And then we have our scoop and an antenna right here. We do have this piece right here. We have some nice raised rivet detail on this piece right here. And then we flip it over to the underside. Again, not much detail to this piece, but the nice touch about it is we do have some indents right here for our rear view mirrors connection points. And we also have some indents right here for our connecting hooks right here. So again, very nice on that. Okay, up next we have our tow bar. Again, nice thing that I really like that they added this into the kit. Even if I don't build it on this build, I am going to save this for a future build. Like if I do a base or a diorama for a Russian aircraft, definitely going to use this instead of having to go find one on the internet. Alright, now we have our first Ordinance sprue. Ordinance, I've never been a fan of out of the box Ordinance. The aftermarket Ordinance just looks 100 times better than out of the box, especially when it comes to like things like this, the fin blades right here. On 3D printed, you have those nice and hollowed out, with a see-through effect to that. So again, 3D printed stuff for that will be a lot better. For the fins on here, they are all really thick and blocked out on that. So if you're going to build straight out of the box, you're going to need to file those down to get that knife edge look to it, because it is squared off on the fin blades on these right here. On all of them, they're all blocked off. So yeah, and we get 2 of these sprue right here. Alright, so up next we have our detail for our flaps and slats and ailerons right in here. We have some nice panel line and rivet detail on all of these pieces going on our flaps and slats. There's not much detail to go on these pieces, but where there is detail, it is fairly nice. Another nice thing about this kit is we do have the static discharge wands right on here, and they are nice and thin. They might be a little bit thick to scale, but if they were actually in scale, you wouldn't be able to see them anyways. But so definitely going to have to be careful when moving the model around when these are attached, because that is going to be something really easy to knock around and get broken off. Alright, up next we have another Ordinance sprue, and the Ordinance on this sprue is actually fairly nice. Alright, so the fin blades right here, the leading edge is knife edge. The trailing edge, at least on this one, is kind of blocked off, but on the other ones, no, they're all blocked off. Alright, so, and then up here, again, blocked off, like squared off on those as well. So, definitely going to need to get some aftermarket Ordnance for this kit, at least in my opinion. For my build, I will definitely be adding some aftermarket Ordnance to this kit. Alright, so our previous sprue was of our air-to-air Ordnance, and this is of our air-to-ground Ordnance. And again, the Ordnance on here just looks okay. The rocket pods, they look okay. We do have some decent detail on these right here, but the problem with that is it is fairly shallow, so once you sand out the seam of it, you're going to lose all that detail that's right along the seams, and then you're going to have to either restore it, or you're going to have that giant blank spot on it when it's covered around with all this other detail, as you can see in the camera right there. So again, aftermarket, I definitely think that's the way to go for all of this. Alright, so moving on to our intake sprue. Alright, so outside we do have some nice detail, panel line and rivet detail. We do have a mold seam that goes right down the middle right here on this that we're going to need to take care of. It almost, alright, no, it doesn't go with the panel line. So definitely going to need to sand that out, take care of that so you get a nice flush seam, and it is on both sides of the intake right here, which is kind of expected for these intakes, the way that these are molded. So, but it is very faint, and it should be very easy to take care of. Our nose landing gear, again, nicely detailed. We do have a couple ejector pins to cut off on the outside, but we don't have any real ejector pin marks on any areas that will be an issue, except for this one right here, but that's going to be covered up by another piece, so it shouldn't be an issue. And we also do have some mold flash right on the seam right here. Now when it comes to the inside of the intakes, alright, so the very front of them is nice and smooth, no issues with up front. And then back here we do have a few ejector pin marks. But with that being said, you're going to have your FOD gates. You can put them in the down position and not even have to worry about any of that right there. And then with the upper intakes, you won't be able to see it because they have those other pieces that go in to block that off also. So again, nicely detailed on that. And then we have our mud deflector for our nose gear. It does look like it's hollowed out, but it is, you're just going to need to clean up on the back end, and that should fix that issue, because it looks like it's hollowed out but not all the way. So just a quick file on those pieces and that should remedy that issue. Alright, so up next we have our cockpit tub and also all of our cockpit detail and our nose cone. Nose cone, no detail to it at all. Shape looks okay. I'm not sure about the shape, but it doesn't look terribly off to me. But the cockpit area, you have a little bit of detail up here. You're going to have a couple boxes that block off a lot of that detail as well, but you do have a little bit of detail starting out. You also have a little bit of detail on the cockpit floor, but again, you're really not going to be able to see much of that because you're going to have the ejection seat here, you're going to have the instrument panel here, the flight control stick, and then the rudder panel. So you're not going to be able to see much of the floor. Then on the side pieces right here, you have these instrument panels that go onto there, and we'll take a look at those here in a second. But I mean, the detail on it looks okay for starting out. I don't know if there's actually detail that goes back along here like some of the cockpits do, but again, for here it looks okay. Then we move off to the sidewalls. Sidewalls look okay. They do look a little bit generic, but I mean, with paint and everything, they should, and the decals, they should be okay. But in my honest opinion, definitely now with the 3D printed decals that are out there, those are definitely worth the money when doing a cockpit, because this cockpit, they look a little bland in my opinion. And then this instrument panel, again, like I said, you're gonna have a decal that goes in there and kind of liven it up a little bit, but not much. So yeah, that's what I gotta say about that. Alright, so our next screw, again, we got our gun panel right here, some nice vent detail on that. Then our gear doors going on the outsides of those look alright. Then our firewall for our engines, again, a little bit of hosing detail, not too much to it. Not really going to be an issue unless you're going to leave off one of the engine covers and leave the engine out. That's the only way that you're going to be able to see any of that. Then we have a bunch of other little parts with our wing fences and our landing gear cabin right in here. A little bit of detail, not much to it at all. We're going to have a couple oxygen bottles or of some type that go in there as well, but no wiring or cable detail in there at all. We also have our boarding ladder right here. It's just a standard ladder. It is squared off. They aren't round rungs, so I don't know how accurate that is. Then we flip over to the other side for our speed brakes. Speed brakes, no ejector pin marks in there. Then again, a very nice job on the placement of the ejector pin marks. On all the landing gear doors, there are no ejector pin marks on anything that you will be able to see. All the ejector pin marks are placed in areas that will not be visible once the model is all built. Alright, up next we have our vertical stabilizers, and again, the panel line and rivet detail on this part is absolutely amazing. I'm hoping that the camera will show up or pick it up. Try going a little bit. Trying to get it to work for you. There we go. We got it. So there's the panel line and rivet detail on there. Absolutely, for this part, I think these are the best detailed parts on the entire kit, honestly. They look really, really nice. Alright, and then moving on, we have some more detail for our doors, our engine cover panels right here. Again, nice panel line and rivet detail on here. We also, on these pieces, we do not have that mold seam going down the sides of here. So that's a nice touch. Don't have to worry about that on these two pieces. Then everything else on here from this side looks very nice. We flip it over, and again, perfect placement of ejector pin marks on all of this. Everything like your gear doors, your speed brakes, your landing gear wells, there are no ejector pin marks on any of those areas that are going to be visible. So very nice. And we also have some very nice rivet detail on these FOD deflect or FOD gates as well. So just moving right along on that. Again, very nicely done on the ejector pin placement. Alright, then moving on, we have our horizontal stabilizers. Again, nice panel liner rivet detail to these. We do have also those static discharge wands right here, and very, very thin. The ones on the very tips, I am extremely worried about breaking those off. Don't know how we're going to protect those. We're just going to have to be super careful when maneuvering the model. We also have this probe that goes on the vertical stabilizer. I do really like the shape of that. I am thinking I'm going to try to find that in metal as well. We'll have to see if that's available. But everything else on here does look very nice, and we do have some nice rivet detail on the inside of this, which is the one of the FOD gate pieces right here. Right, this is a double sprue, so we have our pylons right here. Again, nice detail on all of those, no real issues with any of them. We have panel line and rivet detail on everything. Everything should go together nice and fine. The one thing is the sprue connection points that kind of irritate me is when they have it right on the connection side of the part, as you can see. So we're gonna have to cut that down and sand it down and make sure that everything turns out flush and doesn't affect any of the fit issues on that. So that, like I said, that's being nitpicky of me, but all the detail on all this does look very nice. Alright, so this is our last sprue, and this is our engine sprue. And alright, so our engine bodies, they look very nice. Some nice plumbing detail on them. And then if you want to have this pulled out or have the engine cover off, add a little bit of plumbing to this and it'll really be outstanding on that. Then for our fan blade detail, again, nice fan blade detail on there. And then a few other detail pieces that go on the engines right there. And then moving on to our exhaust cans. Alright, so we have the inside of the exhaust can. The detail on it does look, it looks okay. It's a little bit soft on the detail right there. And then the outside burner can absolutely looks like garbage. In my opinion. It looks like it was something that was molded, I would expect to be molded in the 70s or 80s, not in the early to mid 2000s. So definitely going to be getting an aftermarket exhaust set for this kit, because with these exhausts, it is definitely a focal point of these modern day aircraft. And when you have a molding like that, that is just absolutely horrible for the molding for that, especially with it being such a focal point. And as you can see, there's almost very little detail on the outside, and on the inside, again, very little detail on that. And always whenever I look at a jet aircraft or a modern day aircraft, the exhaust area is one of the first things I look at on the kit. So definitely going to be looking at getting some aftermarket exhaust for this, because those are just not up to standard in my opinion. Alright, so that does it for the Trumpeter 132nd MiG-29C Fulcrum. And the kit, from what I can see, looks pretty nice. So the body detail, the wings, the stabilizers, all that detail looks absolutely amazing. The intake detail, absolutely great. The issues that I'm running into with this kit are the exhaust cans. That is problem number one. That is a main focal point for me. So definitely going to be getting the aftermarket exhaust, because the exhausts in this kit are absolute trash. And then moving on to the cockpit. Cockpit looks good or decent. With the decals and everything and painted up, it should look okay. But again, that's like a secondary focal point for me. So definitely liven that up with the 3D printed decals or a resin cockpit, just seeing what's available and which is better quality on that. And then the wheels. Again, I've never been a fan of wheels or rubber wheels or tires for model kit, so that's another thing I'm going to be looking into. And then also with the Ordinance. Ordinance, it looks okay for out of the box. It could use a little bit of work with some filing of the leading and trailing edges of the fins for the Ordinance, but some aftermarket for me might be better, and that's just the way I am. I always sink a ton of aftermarket into all the kits I build. But other than that, that's all I have to say about this kit. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope also that if you're on the fence about buying this kit, I hope this video helped you make your decision. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below, especially if you've built this kit before. Let us know of any hiccup areas that you came across on the kit, or any inaccuracies that you know of in the kit as well. But until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.